winning is crazy. Your opportunity, your opportunity, your opportunity.
We started with 5,000 developers, and then after 2 years we had 10,000, and this year we actually had more than 15,000 developers on site.
Wow.
Within only 3 days, we're able to collect over 500 sessions, and each session is like 30-minute long. So the content is there, right? I mean, we have the library, we have the recordings, we have everything on the platform, but then how do we bring it to people? Because no one will start scrolling on our website and just watching the 500 hours.
Yeah.
You need a good team to have your back. Because when the event starts, you cannot rely on your calendar anymore because it's only troubleshooting. Everyone needs something. The curse of event management, when everything goes right, people think everything is normal, but if there's one thing that goes wrong, everyone will see it. Marketing can feel lonely because marketing can be segmented into a lot of specific areas. And then it's often the fact that everyone has their own niche in marketing that they're fulfilling. And with events, I feel like this breaks the stereotype of kind of sitting behind your desk and editing podcast episodes or drafting social media posts.
Hello and welcome to the WeMarketers Podcast. I'm Andrew, and my today's guest is Ivana Spiridonovic, B2B Marketing Manager at WeAreDevelopers. Ivana plays a central role in shaping the HR Leaders Summit in Berlin as a part of the WeAreDevelopers Congress, I think Europe's largest and arguably maybe the world's largest conference for developers. She coordinates more than 60 speakers and over 1,000 attendees. I first connected with Ivana when we collaborated before HR Leaders Summit. I was amazed how everything was organized smoothly, from things like branding, communications, to how event was going live on the spot. And it was a no-brainer for me to invite Ivana for the episode. Ivana, happy to have you today.
Thank you, Andrew. You're so charming. So many compliments in only 1 minute. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
I was trying too hard to do this, to fit in this minute as much as possible. Ivana, to kick off our conversation, could you tell our listeners about WeAreDevelopers, the story behind it? It's so exciting to hear.
Sure, absolutely. So, WeAreDevelopers is actually Europe's largest developer community. We have more than 1.7 million developers who are basically interacting within our community. And if I am not mistaken, we are actually celebrating 10 years of WeAreDevelopers this year. And it's been really exciting. I actually joined the company only 2 years ago. But the story goes back 10 years ago, where basically our founders, who themselves come from a developer background, realized that there is a big lack of developer events, especially on the fun, educational festival side of things, because there's all these conferences focusing on attracting marketing people, salespeople, but they realize that there is just nothing out there for developers where they can celebrate knowledge, network with each other, and just have a great time with each other. So basically, WeAreDevelopers gathered up and they said, okay, we're going to do a community. And how every community starts, it starts with meetups. It starts with smaller in-person events. And that's what they did here in Vienna. That's where we're based in Austria. And so the first couple of meetups and events with like a couple of hundred people took place here in Vienna and Hofburg, and then it started to scale. More and more people wanted to join. And specifically, Berlin was a very attractive city just because there's a lot of tech people out there. So 5 years ago, we actually decided to give it a try in Berlin. And ever since, we've been there each year, each summer. And it kept growing every year. So we started with 5,000 developers. And then after 2 years, we had 10,000. And this year, we actually had more than 15,000 developers on site.
Wow.
And that's what we represent, community and just learning from each other and trying to build a network where basically developers can grow together, and then trying to connect those developers also with companies so they can not only look also for jobs there, but also have a long-term relationships with great employers.
That's great. That's great story. And you said that you joined company 2 years ago. I think the conference was pretty big at the moment. How, just in a nutshell, how's marketing organized within such a big event?
That's a great question. So, marketing, I mean, you know how it is to stereotype. Marketing does everything the light touches. It's very similar, especially in a company like WeAreDevelopers. We work very closely with the events team, but also the sales team, because we're basically creating touch points with the audience. So, how does marketing play here in the events part? Basically, we created the HR Leader Summit, which combines directly with the World Congress. And here the idea was to create a touch point with HR people, employer branding people, because we saw firsthand that there was an increasing demand from the developer side. They've been more and more interested in career development opportunities, but also we do a survey each year where we kind of ask what is most important to developers. And we saw an increase in the last 4 years when it comes to mental health and just wanting to also upskill within your own company, internal mobility opportunities. They're kind of just trying to connect with HR people. And so we saw this demand firsthand and kind of our team kind of reached out to the marketing and they said, hey, we need to figure out a way how we can combine HR with the tech people, because there's obviously a demand from the developer side to actually connect with this type of audience so they can grow. But we also know from the tech market that HR employer branding specialists are actually seeking ways to better connect with developers. So we figured this would be an amazing opportunity. And then we created basically the HR Leader Summit around it. And the marketing team is here to basically, first of all, kind of invite people. So, and also explain this bridge of both the HR and tech side, also selling tickets. So the tickets are something that we do within the marketing, but also sales spectrum. And then long term, we also focus on positioning the WeAreDevelopers brand on both sides of the event and kind of really create this bridge to create this ecosystem between both sides.
It's such a great thing that you found this opportunity to connect both audiences from different worlds.
Thank you.
You are hosting WeAreDevelopers once a year. It's a big event. It requires a lot of resources and so on. But what happens when the event ends? How do you stay in touch with your audience? What are the main touch points and approaches?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we always have to keep in mind that the WeAreDevelopers World Congress is just 3 days a year. And that's something we actually talked about a lot internally, like how can we keep the momentum throughout the entire year. The really cool thing about events is that right after the event or leading up to an event, there's just general hype that creates on social media, in community forums. Like everyone's just excited because it's an experience you can talk about, you can kind of relive. And it lives very organically 1 or 2 months before, 1 or 2 months after the event. But then there's obviously this kind of wave that settles back in, and then what happens? And we actually have been working on this a lot at WeAreDevelopers, especially in the marketing team and together with DevRel as well, where we kind of are trying to find a way to recycle the entire content that we had. I mean, we basically, within only 3 days, were able to collect over 500 sessions, and each session is like 30-minute long. So the content is there, right? I mean, we have the library, we have the recordings, we have everything on the platform. But then how do we bring it to people? Because no one will start scrolling on our website and just watching the 500 hours. So what we did is basically recycle all the recordings and all the sessions and create, first of all, written formats of them. So be it a written article, and then, for example, depending on your resources, you can either just transcribe it and take it as it is and then fine tune it, for example, with AI, and then you have a written format that you can shoot out and have articles live on your website. Or you could be writing white papers. This gives you, again, a gated content. If you want to collect leads, great opportunity to kind of reconnect again with the audience. But what we do a lot is actually video content, because we want to fuel our social media engine with it. So what we did is actually recycle a lot of the sessions, kind of re-edit them and create snippets out of them and kind of look for key moments. And we have an amazing videographer and editor in our team, Dan. Hi, Dan. He's doing amazing work, and he's actually the brilliant mind who creates hundreds of snippets out of these basically sessions. And then the golden nugget is basically to share it, but also make sure to tag the people, the companies,
Yeah.
and make sure this goes out for the next 6 months, because the content is there. And then you just recycle and you share. And as soon as people are involved, people love to watch other people, especially experts, because we have a lot of amazing speakers also who joined us. So this is the perfect opportunity to kind of keep the momentum. And it kind of helps us to continue this hype phase up until like February, March. And then we already start with 2026 announcements and kind of warming people up for the next event. And then we come up with new contents like announcements who's joining. So I would say this is like the best strategy to go to if you want to keep this long-term momentum from a content perspective. But then one thing I want to add here as well is also this community engagement. I mean, there was a lot of people on site, and it's a shame to only talk to those people and to that community once a year. So we also try to engage with the community through smaller events, be it virtual or in person. So for example, for the developer side, we have like weekly live shows where our dev team is kind of inviting everyone to join the conversation. It's very tech specific, but also obviously recycling some insights from the World Congress. And then on the HR side, we are now vamping up a new webinar format that we want to do, and HR meetups. We've been doing that for the last couple of months. So we're kind of reconnecting the audience and making sure that we engage. And we do that with the audience, but also with the speakers. So for all these sessions, we kind of reach out again to the speakers that we've had on the stages to invite them to those live formats, or even to podcasts, because we have two podcast formats: Coffee with Developers for the dev side, Cappuccino with HR for the HR side. So here we try to keep as much momentum as possible by just keeping in touch with people and continuing to build that relationship, because ultimately that's what the events are about, to make sure that we build a long-term way of being meaningful. And we do that by repeating just the communication.
Event is a content generator and
Yeah.
of course networking generator, and then you utilize throughout the year all this content. It's a great strategy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we have to. There's so
Yeah.
much content, and it's a shame because we actually also, I think it was the first edition, we weren't as on point with the strategy as we're now, of course, because every company is growing. And just so many hours kind of got lost in promotion because we just didn't have that pipeline yet. So it's really great to see that now we can recycle everything. And our dev team is actually also working on an AI platform who can actually scrape the entire history of all the events, which is like thousands of hours of content. So it will help again to recycle like old material, which is still very relevant, because in tech there's always something that kind of comes back and then it gets modernized, but there's still some essentials that stay relevant. So this will also be a great opportunity to kind of keep the momentum of, I would
Yeah.
say, World Congress 2022, for example.
Yeah, that's great. Having such a platform like your personal developers YouTube, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. With such big events, when you participate in such a huge projects, there is a lot of learnings. What are the main learnings for you?
So there's a lot of angles to it. I would
Mhm.
say from an event logistics perspective, this was my first event, like really first event.
Mhm,
Before
mhm,
that, I've only organized smaller meetups with like 50 people in
mhm,
Vienna on the
mhm,
corner of the office. So it was very, very student friendly with pizza and beer and very chill environment. But this was like serious because we had like a lot of C-level people coming, we had professional speakers coming. So it was
mhm,
definitely something else. But when it comes to the events logistics, I think my biggest lessons learned is you need a good team to have your back. Because when the event starts, you cannot rely on your calendar anymore because it's only troubleshooting. Everyone needs something. Speakers want to meet you because you've been in
Yeah.
contact with speakers the entire year. They want to talk to you, they want to coordinate with you. I mean, you also remember it wasn't so easy to find me because I was all over the place. And it was really nice to have a really great team behind my back who I could just call and say, hey, I can make this. Can you do it? Especially because I also had to coordinate, for example, that the speakers were at the right stages. Then I also had to coordinate the social media team, not only live coverage, but also like in the back posts on LinkedIn and other channels like Meta, for example. And then at the same time, we also had a booth with our brandings and stuff and had to make sure that the activities are working well. Because in the end, I mean, I'm in B2B marketing and all the activities related to the audience of HR and employer branding, its potential customers. So I need to figure out a way how to engage with these potential prospects. So I also had to make sure that the sales team is covered with everything they needed. So basically, there's a lot of things that add up. So lessons learned number one, when it comes to events logistics, have everything ready that you can have ready before the event so that you only do troubleshooting. Because if you need to start scheduling social media posts, it's game over. That's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
thing. And then for speaker curation, for example, because I was responsible for the program of the event as well, I think my biggest lessons learned is actually to take a very audience centric approach. So the way I did it, because honestly, I'm not an expert in employer branding, HR. I mean, my knowledge comes from just following speakers, following the trends to keep up with the audience, because I also create the podcast. So I need to be ahead of things. But
Mhm.
I'm not an expert. I don't have 20 years of experience in the field. So it's kind of to create the agenda the way you would think it will be ideal for the audience, and then starting to find speakers that kind of cover those topics, and then just interact with speakers and see if what they're bringing to the table and have a very honest conversation about it. And for me, the speaker curation and the program building was very positively well, it was very refreshing because I it was a very eye to eye level experience. Even though some people were experts in the field, they asked me, what do you think the audience wants to hear? And then we kind
Mhm.
of drafted the topic
Mhm. Mhm.
together.
Mhm.
Or if I already suggested that one niche topic was taken by someone else, they were very open to feedback. And we kind of found a way to fine tune the sessions to something else to kind of give more momentum to them as well and make their session unique. So this is one lessons learned, is to kind of continue this approach
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
be very humble and just authentic, and people kind of mirror that behavior, and that was very nice. And then yeah, of course, scheduling gets messy. Try to be as much flexible as we can. One thing that was a personal challenge is when it started raining and we had one outdoor stage. And I remember one of the speakers came up to me and she was like, yeah, what are we doing? And I was like, I'm trying to fix the weather. I will fix the weather. And basically the rain stopped, thank God. And one of the speakers had to kind of move the session to the next day, but we found a way. So just try to be flexible. And I think the main lessons learned here is the speakers react to the way you react to the situation. So if you're calm, then the speakers.
Mhm.
And so that was for me very important, because in me, I was completely freaking out, but I had to keep it
I can
cool.
I can
Yeah.
imagine. I can imagine.
Yeah.
You didn't plan that. You didn't plan what to do if rain starts, right?
I personally didn't. I know I have an events team that has a plan B, but
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
personally didn't for that
Mhm.
stage. I also wasn't prepared for the rain because it only said that it would be a bit like cloudy, and I was very optimistic that there would be no rain. So yeah.
Yeah, but great how you handled this everything.
Yeah.
On my side, for example, as an attendee, yeah, I noticed that Leandro's session was postponed to the next day, but that was
Yeah.
no problem. Like I understood, okay, that is rain. I didn't think something like, oh, they didn't think through this and or something like
Yeah.
that. It was absolutely okay.
Yeah, Leandro was also the most chilled person ever. He really, kudos to him. I was freaking out because I was scared that he would not be as happy, because obviously you expect the session, you are ready, speakers come for this moment. But he was so nice about it and so flexible, and he was even double booked because the next day he was actually supposed to moderate as well. So we figured out a way to kind of bring him from moderation to his session back to moderation. I was following him to make sure I don't lose him, but it was great. He's a great guy.
In terms of agenda, how do you drive the content for the agenda? Is it more like driven on your side, that you want, for example, some directions and give speakers the directions, or it more driven by speakers, or both?
Mm, I try to make it audience relevant.
Mhm,
So, and with that in mind, because obviously the World Congress has been around for longer than the HR Leader Summit.
mhm,
And the reason why we have the HR Leader Summit is also to kind of combine them with the tech audience. I started with developers as the main audience. And
mhm,
I realized that the interest was within HR topics, within talent acquisition topics, and within employer branding topics, because they wanted to talk about recruiting, retention, internal mobility, upskilling, mental health. So, kind of, these were the three pillars that were interesting to them. And this covers a lot of topics. So I kind of started writing it down, and then I was like, okay, so if we talk about talent acquisition, do we only talk about sourcing? And I was like, okay, but sourcing is nice, but what happens after sourcing? Because a lot of companies are actually struggling with retention. So I need to cover that as well. Okay, but if we're talking about sourcing, this means that developers or even HR people are actually looking for a person relevant for an open position. Developers are looking for a role, but why would someone apply to a company they don't know about? And this is where employer branding comes in. So, okay, how can we build employer branding? Okay, it leans into talent acquisition. And then on the other side, we have HR topics, people topics that are related to mental health, well being, career development, for example, and things like this. So I had all these topics in my mind, and I just
mhm,
started to cluster. I did a Miro board, very classic, just writing things
mhm,
down on
mhm,
sticky
mhm,
notes. And I started clustering around. And then I realized, we need to cover as much ground as we can. And from this, I started searching for speakers. And here we had two strategies. We had our official call for speakers, which was just, the official way of applying as a speaker, which is online. So some speakers kind of reached out to us. But then I also did some direct outreaches where, specifically at a topic, I was just looking through LinkedIn who, in my opinion, would be a
mhm,
thought leader in that
mhm,
area,
mhm,
and then started following their newsletter and kind of
mhm,
seeing, okay, what kind of podcasts are they in, and then kind of clustered it into segments. And then obviously through research you fall into certain communities. There's a really strong TA community, for example, in Amsterdam, and so I started to find links between people, and that's how basically the speaker decision started, together with the topic. And then together with the speakers, we then specifically narrowed down the topic. So if there was a person who was, for example, specialized in sourcing and they wanted to bring an AI topic to it, I would then talk to them and say, okay, we already have AI sourcing in this and this and this area. And then the person would say, the speaker would say, okay, but I want to focus on that human level. And I was like, okay, this is a niche we haven't explored yet. Let's take it. And then I build the rest from that. So basically, that's how I approached it. And then the more sessions that got confirmed, the more gaps I started closing, and then I knew specifically where else to go.
when we have confirmation from speakers, so they can confirm, for example, 8 months in advance or something like that,
Yeah.
but then it's a problem to get from them something specific like topic.
Mm.
And for us it's a niche, so we start following up. Hey, do you have topic? But they, okay, I will do this after summer, after holidays, or something like that, postponing this. What's your experience? How do you overcome this?
Good question. I would say follow-ups is definitely the right start. Perhaps what I do, for example, what could help is maybe invite those speakers to another type of format before they join the actual event you invite them to. It doesn't have to be a podcast. It can be a podcast, but maybe it could also be a collaborative article. I did that with Speaker Duo, where they kind of had their specialty, and we suggested that they could write an article to kind of tease their session. And this also helped a lot. Maybe you could argue with, if you share the content already with us, we can create teasers with you, and then also kind of try to reach out and create snippets, for example, give them templates they can use, and maybe work with them through the topic to actually be able to promote their session better, because you have the topic in advance, rather than if you don't have the topic, then you can promote the session in advance. This usually gives the speaker a good incentive to send it to you earlier, just because they want the extra promotion. We do that with all the speakers, actually, and it's a good incentive. And we actually have speakers also knocking, I want to go earlier than it was planned and stuff. So this helps. One other thing that I would suggest maybe is to research what the person is specialized in, and then send over suggestions. That's what I do with some of the podcast speakers when I kind of reach out with an invitation. Hey, do you want to join the podcast? And then I don't want to make the guest having to do a lot of effort without them having already confirmed. So I suggest some topics based on their LinkedIn profile or stuff that they post. And then usually this is a good kind of icebreaker, because you kind of take tasks from them and you can also shape it in the direction that you want it. And it's actually a good win-win.
We've already discussed a lot about details. Let's move on a high level and just have some fun. What excites you about working on events?
Oh, I think the fact that you get out there. I think that's the most important, the most interesting part for me. It's kind of, I've been working in marketing now for 8 years. I mean, before I joined WeAreDevelopers, I was in a smaller team, and we're only 2, 3 people in the marketing team. Now we're a couple people more. But sometimes marketing can feel lonely, because marketing can be segmented into a lot of specific areas. And then it's often the fact that everyone has their own niche in marketing that they're fulfilling. So we have B2C marketing, we have B2B marketing, maybe one person specializes in B2B events, and then it can get lonely very quickly. And with events, I feel like this breaks the stereotype of kind of sitting behind your desk and editing podcast episodes or drafting social media posts. So I think this for me is what really gives me a lot of fun to go to work, and this adrenaline of kind of being around people and also meeting people you work with. So what I most enjoyed from the HR Leader Summit was actually meeting first all the podcast guests we had at Cappuccino with HR, because I've only interacted with them virtually, but then also meeting new speakers that I've only reached out through email. So yeah, I think it's the seeing people and being around people what excites me most about event management, actually.
I think you noticed such a brilliant, subtle, and precise thing about this. Feeling lonely for marketers within organization, because
Yeah,
I feel absolutely the same thing.
yeah.
And now you put my thoughts in a structure. When someone will ask me, I will reply in your words. I will use this as a
Well, I'm
copyright.
sorry that I'm glad I could phrase it well. I'm sorry
Yes,
we feel
yes.
this way.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, yeah, I can fully relate. It's a great way um, to connect and to feel connected with the
Exactly.
world for marketers. And on the other side, what was the most tough thing for you when you was working on this big project and continue working there?
I think the toughest thing, it's actually something my friend told me, because she works in event management and actually left the industry. She told me the curse of event management when everything goes right, people think everything is normal, but if there's one thing that goes wrong, everyone will see it.
Hmm.
And I think that's the toughest part of working in that field. It's like you have to make sure everything runs smoothly, and there's always something that doesn't. And it
Yeah.
can be something that you can't even affect, like the
Hmm.
weather,
Hmm.
but for you in that moment it's the biggest thing, and it actually makes something worse than if it was good weather. So I think for me this is the toughest part, that I just can't be in control of the whole thing, and no matter how hard you try, there will probably be one thing that will still make the event less good than what you initially intended. And that's something that I don't have in marketing. In marketing I can plan every bullet point, every
Hmm.
word, and it's
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
cleanest
Hmm.
outreach. So yeah, that's tough.
And with the events, it can be even if you did everything perfectly, then when you ask someone, okay, what could we improve, for example, and they start thinking like, oh, maybe that red could be not so red or something like that. I mean, such a small things, and there is
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we had the same at our event. I mean, there obviously was some amazing feedback, but there was also some. I mean, and let's not call it negative feedback. I would say it's constructive feedback. But we actually had a good chunk of audience that said they are looking forward to next year. That maybe there's more in-depth sessions because some topics were more scratching the surface. And this is something that I had a challenge with also when I was drafting the agenda, because how do you make an agenda where you actually attract junior level, mid level, senior level people, but then also HR, employee branding people, but also tech people? So there's always going to be someone who is missing something, or maybe that this one session is in parallel with another session that is just as interesting, and then it's just something that you can't control. But I think that our events team in-house here is amazing in supporting, well, in this case, myself, where they have a lot of experience in doing the conference now for 10 years, that we can take everything the way it was written. We can always improve, but there will always be a percentage of people who will expect something else or something different. That's just the way it is. I mean, with 15,000 people, how can't it be like that?
yeah, yeah. And you have such an amazing team. You're like on the same wave
Yeah.
within your team. This is something that really stood apart for me. As a last question, what will be one piece of advice from you to someone just starting organizing, promoting events,
Yeah.
and or already doing this but who wants to improve?
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest lessons learned, and that will be the advice, especially if you have a tight budget. Because if you're just starting off, you don't get a lot of budget. You have to work with basically nothing because you need to
Mhm.
prove it works, even though
Mhm.
you don't have a budget. Um, Organic measures, I think, are the most effective. What do I mean by that? Reaching out to people through LinkedIn, for example. Just I started manually. I just went through LinkedIn, added people that might be interesting for the event I was organizing, added them, waited until they accepted me. 1 or 2 days later, I reached out to them. Hey, we have this event. Would you like to join? No strings attached. Let me know if you're interested. I actually got so many replies just by doing that. So I think for me, this was the most effective thing. And then if you can, on top of that, also nurture. So I was using my own LinkedIn to do the outreach because I wanted people that I talked to that they related the event directly to me, so that
Yeah,
also when they meet me on site, they have this personal connection,
yeah,
because then
yeah.
it just bonds. It creates a better bond. And so I did that with hundreds and maybe even thousands of people. I just reached out, wrote a very authentic message. I got so many replies, and
Mm.
I think this really went a long way. And then once this starts working, you can always automate. But I think that the experiment here, if you don't have the budget, is really good if you just do it manually and start reaching out to people. And then if you want to go a step further, that's what I wanted to say, but I lost my train of thought. Always fine tune your own LinkedIn profile if you do the outreach. So make it just, don't have to post every day. I don't do that. I honestly don't have currently time to do that, but I do post here and there relevant content related to the events that I'm organizing, just to give also context to my persona, to the potential guests I want to have there. And this worked really nicely. It helped me build up the HR meetups that we've had in Vienna. We had the first meetup had 7 people come. The last one had 70. So
Oh,
it
wow.
helps build up. Yeah. And I didn't do anything else for the HR Leader Summit. I just reached out to people in Berlin, invited them to the event, shared the agenda. And I did the same when I scouted speakers. I just reached out and I was like, hey, do you want to join the event? I think you have a great topic. Here's my suggestion. Let me know if you want to collaborate. This works really well.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. Congratulations on the successful meetup.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ivana, that was great to reconnect with you today and to hear insights from you. What is the best way for our listeners to connect with you?
I think the best way is actually LinkedIn. I spend half of my day there because I also manage the WeAreDevelopers LinkedIn profile. So definitely, if we can, I will gladly drop them my URL LinkedIn in the show notes, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can
of
always
course.
connect with me.
Yeah, for sure. I will add everything. Ivana, thanks a lot for joining me today. Have a great rest of the day and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Winning is crazy. Your opportunity. Your opportunity.